Alright, hey guys, Pax here. Welcome back to another weekly meta report. This is the meta report for the second week of November. And yeah, with that being said, hopefully you guys do find this video somewhat informative to kind of prepare yourself for rank. Keep in mind, currently rank is not available, but from the time I'm recording this video in roughly 13 days, the rank season will begin November 27th. So yeah, mark your calendars. And if you're new to my channel, I really do consider if you like and subscribe, really does help me out tremendously. And without further ado, let's get right into the weekly meta report. So again, if you guys are new to my weekly meta reports, I'm going to be going over a couple of tournaments from the past week, looking at all the top performing decks, the winner, as well as some noteworthy contenders. And then at the end, I'll be using one of these decks in PvP battle to see how it performs. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. First tournament we're going to be going over is the Daniel C Mini number 4. Looking at this, we have some interesting contenders. We have the Decidueye. I feel like not many people were expecting the Decidueye, if anything, to be that relevant. The Decidueye fans right now must be really celebrating because yeah, dude, we got Incineroar. Incineroar had its limelight. Now it's time for Decidueye. Decidueye had a bit of limelight when it first came out. And as you can see, number 1, made by Cosmo, is a Decidueye deck. Primarina, I don't know if Primarina can compete, honestly, compared to its other. But yeah, first deck we're going to be going over, of course, is this deck right here, Decidueye EX. But before we get into this, let's just quickly look at the other decks that made it pretty far. So of course, we have Suicune Greninja. I'm not really going to go in depth with this deck because, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys already know. If you haven't, then if you guys don't know, I did go over this deck very briefly in my previous meta report. I don't think the deck has shifted that much. If anything, like they switched a bit of trainer cards. I think like this one might be running Copycat. I don't know, but we also have Magnezone Oricorio, number 3. Number 4th, Mega Absol EX and Hydreigon. And looking at this tournament specifically, last week Mega Altaria was huge, like very prominent. Just the whole Chingling, just having baby Pokemon, very frail Pokemon, just chip your opponent and then eventually sub into Mega Altaria and just like one shot. That was a huge strat. And then looking at this, number 7, a Mega Altaria EX deck scored number 7 for this tournament. We shall see in other tournaments later on this video, but yeah, that's something to note, just kind of showing how very spontaneous this meta is. People are still trying to figure it out, and yeah, that's pretty much, I feel this is perfect, especially since, rank is coming in roughly 2 weeks from now, and honestly, it does feel perfect because, the meta is still kind of forming, and yeah. Anyways, without further ado, we got Decidueye, the non-EX, EX pairing. This is the deck list right here. Yeah. That's all you need. All you really need are Decidueyes, this Rowlet, 2 copies of Rowlet, 2 copies of Dartrix, and 2 copies of both Decidueyes. So this deck is rather interesting. It's been a while since we've seen a deck that focuses purely on one Pokemon's evolution line. Like we've seen other decks for Decidueye, we've seen pairings with Meowscarada, Decidueye. Before that, blanking on the name, the bug Pokemon, Beedrill EX and Meowscarada, of course. But for this really came out of nowhere. It kind of came out of left field because currently, other metas, like other color archetypes are a lot better. Like, don't get me wrong, Grass has been rather stale. We've had decent grass cards. Recently we got, of course, Mega Pinsir EX. But in my opinion, the most effective grass archetype in the meta was revolving around Buzzwole, just the extra dimensional crisis, Ultra Beast meta. And given this deck, it really came out of left field because essentially most of these cards are from previous booster packs, booster sets, with exception of Copycat. And if you guys don't know, I'm just going to go briefly into this, but yeah, Copycat, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw a card for each card in your opponent's hand. A great counter against Red Card and Mars, and also kind of acts as an Iono during certain situations. But you could say this card might be better than Iono, since for Iono, you shuffle both players' hands into your deck and just, of course, redraw. That could help out your opponent, sure. Whereas for Copycat, it's only one-sided. Only you will shuffle your hand into your deck, so it could help you out, could benefit you. But yeah, aside from Copycat, all the other cards were from previous booster packs. This guy, let me see, the Decidueye came out, yeah, Extra Dimensional Crisis. So for this deck, ideally, you do want to lead with the Decidueye, the non-EX version, and then eventually sub into the EX version, and just like, yeah, you could one-shot your opponent. Pierce the Pain is pretty good, especially with one-shotting backline Pokemon. So yeah, Pierce the Pain. This attack does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon that have damage on them. And it's pretty versatile since it could work against your opponent's active Pokemon, as well as, of course, the backline. So in 2 turns, if you want to pair the attacks, this Decidueye does 70 damage. You can do 170 damage in 2 turns, pairing this Decidueye, the non-EX, with Decidueye's Pierce the Pain attack. And speaking of the non-EX, I'm just going to pull it up right here. So, HP 130, rather frail. Stage 2, of course, but also kind of bouncing around. But we do have 2 Lilies, so supporting both Stage 2, so it's pretty nice. But looking at this, Decidueye has 1 attack, Sniping Arrow. This attack does 70 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Again, very similar to this Decidueye, the EX version, where it's just very versatile. You could just do 70 damage to your opponent's active, to your opponent's bench, And yeah, that could really mess up your opponent tremendously. And looking at this deck overall, you ideally want to go, of course, second and just get both the Decidueyes out as fast as possible. So again, ideally get out the 90X first, just have them chip your opponent, just like their backline, make sure they don't build up, and eventually just nuke with the Decidueye EX. And keep in mind, the Decidueye, this is very notable, does 70 damage. That one-shots Oricorio, of course. Oricorio is still a huge menace. 70 HP, so of course, this Decidueye will one-shot. Very nice. We also have Leaf Cape, Erica, and Lily. So a lot of sustainability support in regards to regenerating HP. Very good. Of course, rare candy kind of needed. And yeah, so ideally you want to go as fast as possible, get everybody fully built, go second. And I feel like that's the main issue for this deck, is that if you go first, it will hinder you because although if you do go first, you could get out your Decidueyes a lot faster than your opponent. However, of course, looking at the energy requirements of both Decidueyes, you'll be attacking with either of them on your third turn. So keep that in mind. Whereas if you go second, your second turn, you can evolve into the Decidueye and just attack. So a lot better going second. And yeah, depending on your luck, it might be confirmation bias, I always say this, but I've had a lot of battles where I just always go first. Like I would use like Solgaleo, like Solgaleo EX deck. I would just go second all the time and my opponent would just like get a huge lead against me. There's really nothing that you can do to disrupt your opponent. So this deck has no red card, it's no Mars. So yeah, you want to prioritize just getting out as fast as possible, and then that's when you sweep. I feel like Cyrus is needed for a lot of decks currently, but of course for this deck, I mean, Decidueye, both Decidueyes can attack basically any Pokemon on the field, but also keep in mind Pierce the Pain only affects Pokemon that have damage on them, so you can still use this. So if your opponent's Pokemon have no damage on them, you can still use Pierce the Pain. Yeah, Decidueye Pierce the Pain, and he's like confused. He's like, what? Yeah, turn ends, and then your opponent's also confused. But to counteract that, of course, there is Razor Leaf, so I mean, you can do a bit of damage to the active, which is why, of course, this card will be a lot more effective towards the middle to late game, more so in the late game when your opponent's Pokemon have damage onto them. And yeah, this is a deck. Looking at the matches, this person went 13-0, so a lot of Suicune Greninjas. Yeah, if you guys are sick of Suicune Greninja, it's not over yet. They're still very viable. And just looking at let me look at just quickly at the number 2 player right here. So looking at the deck, very standard. This is ideally a standard Greninja. If anything, the only thing that's changed from the previous months is the addition of May. Also, Greninja EX, very good Pokemon. Essentially, the Water Cell Stealer, but better. Can attack, can punch back a lot more frequently. And yeah, if you guys are curious why this deck is running one copy of Greninja EX, there's going to be a lot of circumstances where you will want to sub into this Greninja compared to Suicune EX, because it really depends on your opponent's deck. If they're running something like a Blaziken / Entei deck where your opponent most likely will only have 2 Pokemon out, only 1 in their bench, you won't really be maximizing Suicune EX's damage. And in that scenario, you just want to sub in this Greninja and this attack. But yeah, looking at this, I can very much see how this deck won against this. Of course, yeah, this deck, you kind of want to build your backline. And Decidueye is the Sniper King. He is the Sniper King in this game. Sniping your opponent's Greninja in the backline, Giratina, and maybe even Froakie as well, depending if your opponent does get pretty bad RNG. But again, this deck is running May. Also a Giant Cape to make it so that the non-EX Decidueye cannot one-shot Froakie, 2 Giant Capes. And it does kind of make sense why this deck won, because looking, again, sustainability. A lot of supports, 2 Lilies, 1 Erica. So I'm assuming this deck got built a lot faster. Kind of ironic, because looking at it, I mean, there is Suicune in this deck, as well as Cyrus, but apparently Suicune just really can't compete against the Decidueye. Very nice deck. Again, a huge dub if you are a Decidueye EX enjoyer. Also, something to note, it really is up to you, but instead of running 2 copycats, I feel you could add 1 How. It's kind of How is a supporter card that buffs the Decidueye EX specifically. Keep in mind only the EX, not the non-EX. So yeah, you do plus 30 damage pretty much once you use How. So you could do 130 damage with the Decidueye, 130 to 110 depending on which attack you use. So yeah, that's something to note. And yeah, that's the Decidueye deck. Next deck we're going to be going over is this deck, Magnezone Oricorio, number 3 by SG Raydor M. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but yeah, this is the deck right here. Went 11-1. And this deck is very nice since it's a non-EX deck, a fully non-EX deck, which feels very refreshing to use, especially with the addition of Megas. It does feel rather nice. So yeah, this is the deck right here. Magnezone, Magnemite, Magneton. Magneton has been relevant ever since this game came out. It's very nice to see. Well, actually more so later on, because this Magnezone was introduced much later on. Space Time Smackdown didn't really come out until a couple months later, of course, but yeah, Oricorio still a nightmare Pokemon. This deck is very disruptive because, of course, Oricorio, this is a wall against EXs, and we have Chingling, 1 copy, but of course, after attacking, you do only 10 damage, but after attacking, during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. So you can get a lot of value, especially towards the early game, making it so that your opponent cannot use Pokeballs, red card to mess you up, stuff like that. So in regards to this deck, I feel like the main playstyle is to lead with Chingling, then sub into Oricorio after Chingling dies, or if you want just kind of maximize the points, to sub out of Chingling. And then after Oricorio gets knocked out, sub into Magnezone and just sweep. HP is pretty good. Looks rather low, but you could, of course, pair it with Giant Cape. There are 2 Giant Capes in this deck. Red card, Cyrus, just to like, yeah, Cyrus is just the most popular win condition in this game. If you don't have Cyrus and you're a new player, I feel like that's one of the best trainer cards to invest in, and it's pretty easy to get. I mean, looking at it, it was in, I think, the deluxe pack from what I remember, yeah. But also, I mean, trading wise, you can just find a good Samaritan that basically give it to you. Also, yeah, sharing is here, so there, someone can just give you that. Very easy to get. But yeah, looking at this, 2 copycats, of course, just like to kind of counteract red card and also to kind of boost your RNG, just in case, depending on the scenario, of course. 1 PC Lady to help with sustainability. Not really gonna go that much into this deck because it's very straightforward. Just Chingling, Oricorio, and then Magnezone. That's the final boss, Magnezone, coming out. And looking at the matches, went undefeated and lost to, of course, number 1, Cosmoo, which kind of makes sense. Going back to the previous deck, sure, Rare Candy and Pokeball, only 1 copy Pokeball, keep in mind, because, of course, only 2 copies of Rowlet. So Chingling could disrupt this deck right here, especially if your opponent can evolve into Decidueyes with Rare Candy. But again, 2 Dark Tricks, so you can just do it manually. It'll take a couple turns, but overall, it will work out. And from the looks of it, I'm pretty sure that's what happened with this battle right here. That's pretty much all I have to say. I don't want to make this video too long, but I do want to cram at least 1 more deck from this tournament. And yeah, last deck from this tournament is the Blaziken EX/Heatmor deck. Yeah, just gonna pull it up. Also, I forgot to say this in the beginning of the video. The link to this website will be in the description below if you want to check out the tournaments for yourself, the deck lists. Man, a lot of people were saying that Blaziken EX was its success, this Pokemon's success, was detrimental on Entei getting a lot of value. But nevertheless, looking at it, there's no Entei EX in this deck. Instead, we have Heatmor, which is pretty nice. An amazing counter to Oricorio, but also keep in mind Blaziken EX does damage to Oricorio, also burnt damage. Because of burnt damage, but also PC Lady exists, basically negating burnt damage. There's a lot of decks, especially with Mega Altaria decks. But yeah, this Heatmor came out in the recent pack. 80 damage, Tongue Whip, requires 1 energy, and this attack does 30 damage to 1 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So yeah, potential counter to Oricorio. Granted, I mean, if Oricorio isn't your active, then yeah, kind of hard to outplay. But if your Pokemon has, like, let's say, like, very frail Pokemon, babies, freaking Magikarp, Magikarp, I'm just gonna pull them up right here. Just any Magikarp, they're all frail. Any Magikarp, they're all frail. If they're not Giant Caped, then they're just easily getting one-shotted by this Heatmor, which is why, yeah, once rain comes into the game, this Gyarados EX is dead on arrival. Mega Gyarados, just any Gyarados at this point, because of how frail Magikarp is and how hard it is to build up Pokemon nowadays and how fast-paced the game is right now. I did get a comment in my previous video saying that, like, they went on like an 8-0 win. I did get a comment on my previous video. I did get a comment on my Mega Gyarados EX video. No hate to that person, but that person said that they went on like an 8-0 win streak with Mega Gyarados EX. But also keep in mind, we are in casual battle. So I mean, there's a lot of decks in casual battle that are really not that good. And that's why I had a kind of a hard time making that deck showcase. But when I make deck showcases, I get into the ranked mindset. Like, how will this deck perform in ranked? And usually at the end of the deck showcases, I would use a deck in ranked. But currently, of course, we can't really do that. So it's really hard to tell. Like, yeah, using that deck in that deck showcase, there was a lot of battles where I would just instantly win. I would just get like huge success using that deck. But of course, those wins aren't really that reflective on the overarching meta. Just a little, I'm kind of digressing, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. But yeah, anyways, Blaziken, Mega Blaziken EX, yes, this is what we're talking about. So ideally, you do want to lead with Heatmor, eventually sub into Mega Blaziken, but you could also lead with Mega Blaziken. It really is up to RNG, because if you go second, your second turn, you could potentially get him out and just start attacking, which is pretty good. And then looking at the trainer cards, Professor's Research, of course, Cyrus, 1 copy, yeah. 1 copy of Lily, 1 copy of Copycat, May, just to help get out Mega Blaziken as fast as possible. Rare candies, of course, Pokeball, Flame Patch, and 2 Rocky Helmets and 2 copies of Rocky Helmet just to chip your opponent's Pokemon, because of course Mega Blaziken EX doesn't really need more HP, just as it is. But yeah, very straightforward, just sub in Heatmor, chip your opponent's bench Pokemon, And then eventually, once Mega Blaziken gets out, you could use Cyrus to just pull out your opponent's Pokemon. Like if they're building up like Mega Altaria or something like that, sub them in and just bully them with Mega Blaziken. Also, this is made by Ohu. I forgot to say, but yeah, great job. Went 9-2. Won against a Decidueye deck. Not the same one prior, but it does make sense. This guy didn't go against the #1 player. And if they did, you never know. They could have just knocked out the #1 player because, yeah, Fire type beats Grass. And Mega Blaziken is definitely 2-hit KOing either Decidueyes. Even one-shotting the non-EX if they don't leave cape. Lost against Magnezone or Oricorio. So, yeah, that's their Kryptonite right here. Yeah, just pulling it back again just for reference. Kind of makes sense. I mean, Heatmor is amazing for chipping your backline, but more likely than not, Chingling is the only one you can kind of one-shot with Heatmor, but most likely this Pokemon will be in your opponent's active. Oricorio, 3-hit KOing, potentially 4-hit KOing, so something to note, yeah. So most likely you will be chipping down the Magnezone, and as I stated earlier, Blaziken does do burn damage to Oricorio. This deck has 2 Oricorios. However, of course, PC Lady does counteract that burn damage, and more importantly, removes the special condition. That's a Mega Blaziken EX deck in a nutshell. Part of me does prefer the Entei pairing, because for the Entei pairing, I mean, you are drawing cards. It really does feel nice, but also the more cards you draw, the more cards your opponent potentially can draw as well, because of course, copycat. Kind of a double-edged sword right there, but yeah, that's the Mega Blaziken Heatmor deck. And yeah, that's the Daniel C mini tournament. Overall, it does look very promising. I really do like how the meta has shifted. And yeah, next tournament we're going to be going over is the Froggy EX Super Cup. Although it is still kind of weekly, I prefer the Froggy EX Weekly Cup. Sounds a lot. This kind of flows through your tongue. It's like, yeah, this feels very nice to say. But yeah, #1 is Mega Blaziken. So that's, yeah. Again, this is why I like the meta currently, because it just feels very diverse. Like, the Decidueye is huge, but at the same time, Blaziken is huge. And at the same time, where is Altaria? Let me see. Am I seeing this correctly? Altaria is in number 15 slot. Damn. That was very short-lived. I mean, again, it's very early to tell. I mean, next week, I can very much see Altaria being back on top. But damn, that's pretty rough, man. Because Altaria, a lot of people did have high hopes for, and yeah, this is still pretty good, don't get me wrong. And for the future, I can definitely see it being still super meta relevant, especially if they add more kind of psychic support cards or like cards that kind of synergize well with Mega Altaria EX. I might just go over one deck because I mean, most of these are very straightforward. Mega Blaziken, Heatmor, we already went over. Yeah, Decidueye, very top performing. Suicune Greninja, already very briefly went over it, and yeah, I've already talked so many times. I've already talked a lot about this card throughout the past couple of months. So the last deck we're going to be going over is this deck right here, Mega Absol and Darkrai EX, made by Frog EX Vowden. Very interesting deck composition. We got 2 Chinglings, Tyrogue, 3 baby Pokemon in total, and only 1 copy of Darkrai EX, 2 copies of Mega Absol EX. This deck, as darkness is like darkness, I feel like the overall archetype is to give your opponent a migraine. This when it comes to this, like chipping them with poison or just hand disruption or energy disruption when it comes to Guzzlord EX. Yeah, just make their life a living nightmare. Essentially, the burn archetype for this game, kind of like if you ever play other card games, there's always like a burn archetype because you could lead with this deck a lot of ways. So Chingling, again, amazing. This hand disruption, making it so that your opponent can't use items. Tyrogue, amazing for just one-shotting frail Pokemon, especially babies, because Tyrogue plus paired with Darkrai EX's attack ability, you're doing 40 damage. So let's say your opponent is leading with like a Chingling, messing you up. Your next turn, or even your first turn if you do go second, feed Darkrai EX 1 energy, attack with Tyrogue. That baby Pokemon is gone. Easy point. And it's pretty nice because leading with baby Pokemon, although they are very frail, you're getting a lot of value. For one thing, I mean, of course, you are doing the attack abilities, whether it's Jingly Noise or Slappy Knuckle. And on top of that, you are feeding your bench. So yeah, lead with baby Pokemon and just either feed Darkrai EX or Mega Absol. For this deck, you could also lead with Mega Absol, but I feel like that's kind of risky. If anything, you want to get either Absol or Darkrai EX out to either in your mid to late game. Because yeah, if your opponent knocks out Mega Absol, you lose. It's yeah, you just basically lose. That's kind of your opponent's win condition, just to one shot or like just knock out this Pokemon. Oh boy, I just realized. Okay, so Tyrogue is here, Darkrai. There's also Giovanni. So in one turn, you could do 50 damage. Yeah, dude, oh my gosh, man. I feel very bad for Magikarp because people are saying that like for Magikarp decks, for Mega Gyarados EX, you want to have decks just like that help with that card getting energy. So we have Manaphy as well as Mantike. And given that Tyrogue in one turn, you can one-shot a Manaphy as well as a Mantike. So yeah, for my deck showcase, I did use Frillish because I'm an amazing wall. But again, for that deck, for Mega Gyarados specifically, at this point, I might as well pull up Mega Gyarados. I've been talking about this card a lot. But yeah, looking at his attack, to get the most value with the attack ability, you want to get this card out as fast as possible. And given that, it's very hard because, of course, 4 energy. You need 4 energy, and granted, I mean, you could get very lucky with Misty, but again, that's a lot of luck. It requires a lot of luck, and and most of the time, you will get this card out towards the middle to late game. And yeah, I just want to kind of say that because it's very sad. I'll be happy to see Mega Gyarados perform very well in some of these tournaments. Like, I'll be happy. I'll be crying tears of joy because, yeah, dude, this meta really isn't to this Mega's favor. Heatmor, Chingling, Jirachi, we have a lot of cards that kind of disrupt getting this card out. So, very unfortunate. Just rest in peace, Mega Gyarados. Yeah, coming back to this deck to kind of reiterate what I said, kind of summarize it, you do want to kind of lead with Tyrogue or Chingling and eventually sub into Darkrai X or Mega Absol and just win the game. Mega Absol is amazing because, of course, this 80 damage, somewhat decent. It's like, it's alright. But what makes this card amazing is, of course, after attacking, your opponent reveals their hand, choose a supporter card you find there and discard it. Just discard it. So permanently out of the game, unless they add cards that counteract that. So like, let's say like they add a card that like, where like you would use it to get a supporter card from your discard pile. But even then, I mean, your opponent could just Mega Absol yet again. Also, even if your opponent doesn't have any support cards in their hand, you still see what they're cooking. So if you can get this guy out relatively fast, then yeah, you can kind of pivot depending on what they're about to do. And of course, one thing to note is that you could pair Giovanni with Mega Absol, doing 90 as well as Darkrai, doing 110 damage in one turn if you do feed him. So yeah, just something to note. Also, red card for disruption, XP just to get Mega Absol out if you do get a pretty bad hand. Rocky Helmet, again, just to kind of chip your opponent even more, chip your opponent's Pokemon. Guzma, yep. Copycat, PC Lady, Cyrus, Sabrina. And yeah, very straightforward. And looking at the battles, let's look at the matches right here. Lost 3 times, very unfortunate. However, still got the 2nd place. So the decks that this deck lost to. So first one, let's go down this list right here. Suicune Greninja. Okay, very much expected because yeah, that deck prioritizes on just chipping your backline and they can just bully this Mega Absol. And let me just look right here. So this deck specifically, if it's running 2 Cyruses, then yeah, you're basically screwed. I can see why they lost. So 2 Cyruses. Yeah, so yeah, chip Mega Absol, Cyrus, just start beating them up into active. Retreats, guess what? Another Cyrus and just win. GG. So I can very much see how this deck won. And then looking at the other decks, lost to Decidueye, both Decidueyes. I mean, it's very much expected since, of course, I already stated it earlier in the video, but this deck prioritizes on chipping just like anyone on your field. You can just target your opponent's bench, and keep in mind, using both Decidueyes in 2 turns, if you attack with the non-EX and EX, you are doing 170 damage. 170 damage. Looking at this, Mega Absol has 170. Yeah, so I feel like you're more, it's better if you just don't even have Mega Absol out, because again, easy win condition. But even then, if you don't have Mega Absol out, then I mean, you're basically doomed from the start, because I mean, Tyrogue, Chingling, amazing for early game, but towards the middle to late game, of course, they're just easily going to get one-shotted. This deck's only running 1 copy of Darkrai, so once Darkrai EX is out, and if you refuse to put Mega Absol out, yeah, you're basically like, there's really nothing you could do. So I can very much see how this deck lost to that. But overall, still very fun. If you like this to mess up your opponent, if you like messing up your opponent, if you like just giving them a bad time, just like laughing just while you're just like watching them suffer, then this is for you. No hate to people who actually use this, but yeah, that's I mean, I feel like that's the whole overall like the burn mindset in a nutshell, just like kind of messing up your opponent. Very annoying, but again, it's a game. Just yeah, in the end of the day, just kind of remember that. Personally, I prefer the other version with Oricorios. It's on my channel. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna leave it in the description below if you want to check it out. Or actually, if I remember, I forgot there's this feature, but in the top right, there should be a notification right here. You can just click on that and just look at the video if you want later on, if you want to kind of look at it briefly and come back to this. But yeah, that's the Mega Absol Darkrai EX deck. And yeah, that's the Frog EX Super Cup. Again, very similar to the Daniel C Mini tournament, just more so with Blaziken dominance, whereas this, Decidueye, this guy didn't really meet any Blazikens, which is why I probably won. And I really can't wait for next week, because next week's meta will most likely be slightly different. Hopefully, we shall see. But yeah, it's relatively still forming. And again, 13 days from now, from the time I'm recording this video, should be a lot less when I upload this. But yeah, rank will be coming again. Just mark your calendars. Just to kind of reiterate what I said earlier, November 27th is when rank will be coming back. But yeah, to end this video off, I'm going to be using this deck right here made by Cosmo in PvP battle, and we'll see how it performs. All right, so it seems like my opponent is playing Dialga / Melmetal deck. For now, first of all, Professor's Research. Very interesting. So in a couple turns, we can get Decidueye out. But if you can get Rare Candy, then of course we can get him out next turn. At this point, Skill Dive and just chip Dialga. Because keep in mind, if I do get Rare Candy, Next turn, Decidueye can just target Dialga, doing 100, making sure that this Pokemon can't get much value. Again, this is why this deck is amazing. It's chipping the bench and even the active, just like, yeah, a lot of versatility. Okay, this is a very fast battle, but yeah, again, this is kind of showcase how much potential this deck has, because now I just do this. I could, as I stated earlier, I could lead with Decidueye, the non-EX version, but I feel like in this scenario, I can just do this, and my opponent can't do anything. Yeah, because I just do that, Razor Leaf, and the Dialga has nothing. And no matter what, I can just, in 2 turns, this Decidueye will just one-shot that Dialga, that legendary, and yeah, that's his deck in a nutshell. Just a little glimpse of the power this deck has. Decidueye has, again, the Sniper King himself. Melmetal not really that meta relevant, but you never know, man. In a month, I wouldn't be surprised if like that card will be super just valuable, especially if they do add very broken metal support. But yeah, that's pretty much the video, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, make sure to like and subscribe because I really do enjoy making these videos. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.